is question of the day is, what do you do for fun during COVID? Like, what have you been doing for fun while we're having to be like quarantine kind of thing? So I'm going to pass it off. Oops, why do I keep getting that reminder? So I'm going to pass it off to who I see, which is Chase to my right on my screen. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, a little bit about, you know, where you're from, what you do, and then what do you do for fun during COVID?
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Chase Bryson. I'm an officer at the Portland Police Bureau. My current job is I'm the Crisis Intervention Team Coordinator at the Bureau. So I work up in the BHU office and help manage our Enhanced Crisis Intervention Team program, and then help facilitate and administer our CIT and ECIT curriculum at the Police Bureau. Fun during COVID, a lot of time outside with the kids, bikes and basketball and things like that. Other than that, kind of going out in the woods or hiking has been one other thing I've done. That's it.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. So Judith, do you want to take us into the roll call since more people are joining and I'm not sure I can see everyone?
Sure, absolutely. Sylvia, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you've been doing that's fun during COVID?
Okay, I'm Sylvia Zingesser, and I'm currently a TAC member, and I'm with NAMI, Multnomah. And for fun, well, every day is a COVID experience. So I would say, you know, keeping up with the cats is that keeps me pretty busy, especially one cat that's pretty particular about how he's fed. So I'd have to say that's one other thing. And then walking. And I have a friend that I talk with down in California that has a wonderful sense of humor. And so we talk a lot and we laugh a lot. So yeah,
that's the best. Thank you. Rochelle, how about you?
I'm a psychologist, former member of the Citizen Review Committee, former member of COAB, currently a member of the Mental Health Alliance. And for fun, I come to PCCEP meetings.
Good. Rachel. Give Rachel a second to find the mute. Okay, I'm going to go to Trudy, and Rachel will hit you after Trudy, if you're back. Trudy Cooper, welcome. Okay, Trudy says, I take care of my pets in my garden and talk to my kids on the phone. I get my friends to come over and visit on the sun porch, which is like being outside, but it is warm, pleasant, and safe. That sounds fantastic, Trudy. Thank you for sharing. Bob?
Okay, I'm Bob Davis. I'm a retired internal medicine physician. I'm on the board. I've retired in 2016. I'm on the board of the Portland Public Safety Action Coalition, and I'm on the board of the Bybee Lakes Hope Center. I got interested in this because before I moved from Philadelphia here 15 years ago, I was involved in a very successful mental health and addiction program for the city of Philadelphia. And this is inspiring me to try to get a similar program up and running here, although it appears that it's up and running to a point, but there's a lot of work to be done. And that's my interest. As far as COVID, the highlight of the day is walking my dog. And a lot of time to do Zoom meetings for the projects that I'm involved in, and also with family and friends.
Thank you, Bob. That's great. I just saw they got the coolest giant playground stuff donated to Bybee Lake Center.
Sure, anybody that wants to do a private tour out there, I'll set it up for them, because you can't appreciate everything that's going on there until you actually see it. It's quite an operation.
That's great. Thanks, Bob. Larry, how about you? Okay, so I just heard from Rachel. She says, hi, my name is Rachel Germanfield. I usually talk with my friends. My boyfriend is actually in this meeting. His name is Larry, and our mics do not work for some odd reason. And if y'all want to try going out and coming back in, that's worked for me. I've been having trouble with Zoom and the miking as well. Larry, hi, or Jared, hi. We're introducing ourselves and saying something fun that we are doing during COVID.
Hi, I'm Jared Hager, he, him. I work for the Department of Justice, and I'm here in my role as the monitor of a settlement agreement between the United States and the city of Portland. I have been dealing the last 3 weeks with a furnace that crapped out. And so I've been dealing with being cold and trying to think of something fun. Playing a lot of online chess. So I got the chess app and I've been practicing on my game and improving some. I got my rating up to 1700, so I feel pretty good about that. And
Whoa.
nice hobby. Thanks for having me.
Way to go. Thanks, Jared. Good evening, Yolanda. Good to see you here. We're introducing ourselves, who we are, and something fun we have been doing during COVID.
Hi, good evening. I just got done. I was delivering bead kits for students at PSU tonight. So anyway, Yolanda Salguero, something fun. You know, I've been really fortunate to be able to do CrossFit throughout the pandemic. And so whether it's in my garage, whether it's in somebody else's garage, whether it's out of school, that's what I've been doing. And it's helped my attitude, just everything. So I'm very thankful. Thank you.
Thank you, Yolanda. I keep hearing this sound. It almost sounds like a burp, but I'm the only one with my mic on when it happened, and it's not me. I don't know what to say.
Yeah,
I just
heard
want
it
you to know.
too. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. So, the first thing we had on the agenda
Wait a
tonight.
minute, we have Barb.
I am so sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, Barb. I don't see, there she is. I didn't see her picture. Barb, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I need to use Amy's mic. Is Amy's mic on?
Yep.
There you go. Hey y'all, I am Barb Greenish, and she, her pronouns, peer support specialist. What I do for fun, coloring books, I think, is my dealio.
Nice. Claudia.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Claudia. I'm the project assistant for PCCEP. What I've kept myself doing, I guess that's fun during COVID, is just taking walks in my neighborhood, especially with working from home, just being able to walk around, even if it's with my mask and going all the way on the other side of the sidewalk when people are walking by. It's still nice just to get out and take that breather and that walk. So I really appreciate still being able to do that.
Claudia, and I'm Judith. I'm here as staff, and I have had some really nice time on the porch with some friends. And my most fun probably is hanging out with my son and daughter-in-law, who I've luckily lived with all this during this COVID. They're going to be moving soon, but they're really fun. All right, Amy, I'm sorry about jumping the gun.
You can go now. You can start. Sorry about that.
Okay, well, so I actually requested that the next item be on the agenda because there's been sort of some controversy around the language we use for quite a while. And we have heard, you know, behavioral health is the language that the city adopted in the police bureau. And we have also heard, I've had feedback, I think we've had feedback that people also want it to be referred to as people living with mental illness or mental health diagnoses. I've also heard that people want to be able to put out there that it's also for people who have addiction issues with drugs and alcohol. So I just thought it'd be great if we could all talk and see if there is some kind of inclusive way that we can talk about it, that people feel they'd be reflected in. Jason has given a lot of feedback on this and he's not here tonight. I did let him know we'd be working on it, but maybe, Rochelle, you're with the Mental Health Alliance, maybe you know, our association, maybe you have some ideas about it too. So just wanted to put that out there. What are people's thoughts on what language feels right?
Hey, I want to ask, and I don't know if Rochelle knows, I don't want to put her on the spot, but is that what people at the Behavioral Health Alliance believe, or is that what Jason believes?
It's the Mental Health
I'm
Alliance.
sorry.
It's the Mental Health Alliance,
Yes, yes, yes.
which is
No, you said Behavioral Health
group
Alliance.
Oh,
that's
sorry.
part of the Mental Health Association. The people in the Mental Health Alliance, a couple of us have different points of view, but the Mental Health Association in general are using words mental health, not behavioral health. And that's something that I agree with also. I don't think all problems are behavioral.
Chase, do you have any insight into why Portland the police choose to use the term behavioral health?
I do not. That was
Okay, sorry to put you on the spot.
discussion.
I think, Judith, if I remember right, that when this subject first started about 5 or 6 years ago as to language, I think it originated at the state and they moved it forward to be a collective term that was inclusive of substance use disorder, mental illness, and behavioral health disorders. So it was like an all-inclusive word that didn't separate anything anymore. And people felt like they didn't want to be known by their diagnosis. So they wanted to leave mental illness out of it because of the stigma. But then a lot of people, have different viewpoints. So collectively, behavioral health has been used from the state just about on everything they've been doing going forward since the ACA expansion, like in 2010 and 11. So that's my take on it. Is I don't have a preference either way. I'm okay either. Somebody's belching. That's what it is. We have a rogue belcher in the
I'm
background.
gonna go ahead and remove Rachel and Larry because they have been being distracting with the noises the whole time.
Oh, okay. I thought they
Their
weren't,
mics are
their
muted.
mics weren't working.
No, they keep making noises and unmuting and then muting real
Oh,
quick.
you can see it. Okay.
Yeah, I've
thank-
been watching them.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's
That's her
the
job.
belcher. So thank you, Claudia.
Don't
But
get anything past Claudia.
so maybe if we use like all terms somehow, that it's reflective of each of the important areas, that I guess being inclusive in this world includes everything. Just like the LGBTQIA is growing acronyms and letters, maybe we should too.
It's going to separate up.
So what is?
Well, for sure, it seems like, what other thoughts, Barb? You have your hand up.
Hold on, go ahead.
I do. Sorry, I needed Amy's mic. Because I really, really dislike the term illness, especially when mental is in front of it. I hate it even more. And if I could change NAMI's name or what it stands for, I would. Because we want a wellness model for things.
Right.
We don't want
An illness.
an illness model.
Yeah.
But I know that there's people on the former SPMI whatever group, I didn't mean whatever, I didn't mean to be disrespectful, that seem to, their name was their name, which was what? I know it was people with mental illness, and the first one was an S. So,
Severe and
Terrible, like
mental illness is SPMI.
Okay.
That's what it stands for. So
Yeah, it's for subcommittee.
Yeah, so Jared, you're next.
Well, the S was for subcommittee, for people with mental illness. And I do think there's a lot of power to words, and I think our words help frame the way we see reality. I don't want to speak to the proper, I don't want to answer the question directly, but I do want to share my experience as a person with a physical disability. There's a lot of people who prefer person first language. And so they would call me a lawyer with a disability. For me, I identify first and foremost with my physical condition, not my profession. So I'm happy to call myself a disabled lawyer. My tact has always been to listen to what people want to be called and call them that. It's not so hard to do, but I do understand when you're doing work in a public space like this, it's hard to do that because there are so many disparate views of what the proper way or the best way is. And I think the better way to approach that is, what are some of the ways that are off the table? I mean, get rid of those. And then ideally we're in the ballpark of generally accepted, because I think even with the Mental Health Alliance, they have some different views, if I understood Rochelle correctly. And I know in the disability community, there's a lot of different views of how to frame otherwise able, or, to me, it's like, I don't like getting bogged down personally in semantics when there's the broader content of what you're doing. But I also don't want to disregard the value and the importance of language, because I know that's valuable. So that's my thought on it. I appreciate the dialogue. I don't have a good solution. The settlement agreement uses the phrase behavioral health. And so I think the settlement agreement required a behavioral health unit, for example, and a behavioral health unit advisory committee. And the city has done that. I know that they look at their own language too. And if you guys have suggestions or recommendation of what's preferred, we would certainly listen to that. But my experience is it's going to be hard to find consensus on something like that, because some people's, yuck is going to be other people's yum. And that's just, I think there's some stuff that's off the table, onions off the table. But within the realm of green beans, asparagus, we can argue.
Thanks, Jared. Sylvia, did you have something you wanted to say?
Well, it's interesting because there is the talk that is being discussed by. I'm in touch with a friend who's going through getting services for autism as an adult, and that's so I'm actually working with the Autism Society. So and his cousin is a PhD in special education, specializing in research in autism. And she and I have been having discussions about NAMI with National Alliance on Mental Illness and how that needs to be changed. And there is, this is NAMI is national. So we here in Multnomah County cannot change the acronym or the name of the organization, which was started by parents because they needed to get services for their children, and they were frantic because back then, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it was almost impossible to get the right kind of services and to get doctors to work with them, to get the government, the counties, whatever people needed. And so there is the discussion about the term that she brought up that is being discussed. And I have seen like an article or two with NAMI National about talking about brain condition and totally getting rid of the mental illness. So I would say that probably in the next 10 years, we're going to be looking at, because of the stigma that is surrounding this, and people with autism are born with this. This is not something that just, happens to them, that they develop it. I mean, there's just all sorts of reasons why people may have what we call, quote, a mental illness. Some of those people, like in my family, people are, they got the predisposition for the genetics for it. And so you can follow it in families. And my family is one of those families. And so, yes, it would work a lot better if people just thought, you know, I was born with this. This is not my fault. And the behaviors that may happen with that, this has to do, I'm just going to take this, I'm going to get global on you. This has to do with societies not accepting people for who they are and making a place for them, such as people who are different. We don't, we have a very narrow way of putting people to work, for instance. And we don't make room for these people, and these people don't get jobs. And when people don't have jobs, they become a behavioral health problem in many instances. And maybe if our society could grow up a little bit more, we would make jobs for those people. And I think that that's where the research will probably take us, if people are willing to let go of old ideas. And it's going to be a huge problem, but it's just something we need to chip away at, which is why I do the work I do.
Thank you, Sylvia, and thank you for that. That reminds me that when we first were talking about the language, when PCCEP started, we were kind of looking at how it related to the police. And there were some people expressed that they felt like for the police, they're not in a position to diagnose what the cause of the problematic behavior is. They just know that they are they're interacting with someone whose behavior has become a problem for themselves or someone else or people around them. So I hear that at work now, they have a group for neurodiversity, like an employee support group, and everyone from people with ADD to, being somewhere on the spectrum, are joining to get support for their neurodiversity. So I think you're right. We're time a lot of flux.
Right.
The two main things I've heard have been, I'm wondering if we respect the wellness, like centering wellness, which is great. What does it look like if it's simply behavioral and mental health? I just wonder if that, for people who don't understand what the behavioral health piece is, maybe mental health would speak to them, and maybe vice versa. And maybe we leave it alone. It just keeps coming up, and I thought it would be worth a conversation.
I think it's important.
Judith, there's a whole lot of behavioral health diagnoses that are not under the mental health diagnoses. So there are a lot of different personality disorders, a lot of things that they classify as behavioral health and not mental health. So I think if we add them but separate them because they each have their own nuances, then and substance use disorder has taken over addictions. We don't use that word anymore. So it's substance use disorder. And I think if we just show everyone that we understand the differences in the different diagnoses, then that would be respectful in my eyes. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, Amy, what you said is just kind of a reiteration of what Judith expressed, because the word "and" would separate them. So behavioral and mental health subcommittee. This is really familiar to me, not just in the mental health field, but at Portland State, our Pan-African Commons, the name of the center, the acronym is PAC, P-A-C, but a lot of folks didn't like the name PAC. They felt that it wasn't, so Pan-African Commons wasn't inclusive of all the Black and African, diaspora of folks. And so what we learned is kind of what somebody already articulated, is that because there's new students coming in each year, and just like the subcommittee, there's going to be new people coming in each year. I almost feel like, well, one, I'm fine with changing the name, but I'm okay with changing the name and knowing that in 2 years from now, that somebody else is going to change it again. Like, we do want people, especially for the people who are active, we do want them to feel welcome. And if they feel like the name, is a hindrance to them being involved, then I would be good with changing it.
So, you know, it seems like maybe, I mean, I think the group would need to take this to the group to change the name of a subcommittee. I don't know that we speak to this anywhere in the plan or the bylaws.
Wait a
And I don't
minute,
know
who said changing the name of the subcommittee? I thought we were talking about that report.
Oh, well, the language was in the report as well, but the
Yeah, but
critique
that
has been
wasn't
made,
my focus, to
right?
change the name of this group.
Okay.
Where
So,
did that come from?
well, that's what I have, that is some of the feedback I've gotten, is just to use it, you know, both for the group, that the group should have mental health in the title. But we don't have to make any decisions about this. It's just something to consider. And Barb did bring it up around the report that came, the PCCEP report, which used the term mental illness, and she's asked repeatedly that that not be used. And so we wanted to, at the very least, we can let folks know that this is, you know, that mental illness is not language that's respectful. Barb?
Mike, is it on?
Yeah.
Hey, first of all, I know I was the one in the beginning that really didn't like mental/behavioral health.
Oh, okay.
Remember, apparently I'm not like in the DSM about what's all under behavioral health. I just thought it was basically substance use disorder.
Mhm.
It's the illness part
Mhm.
that I don't know. I get how it fits with the clinical model, but it doesn't fit who we are.
As peers, we're about the recovery model, the wellness model,
No, as people with lived experience that way.
that too. So yeah, I don't know. That's why I changed it from SPMI to behavioral health in the first place, was to try to be inclusive of all of what everyone else was doing that represented the same function.
Well, the people who've had the strongest feeling about the name aren't here tonight that have expressed it to me. So perhaps what would tie this up, it's been a very helpful conversation. I've learned a lot. I thank everybody for their participation. And is that we officially make the recommendation that the language is changed in the report, and that we all, and that that the term mental illness not be used in reports or anything related to PCCEP. And then, you know, if people have trouble with the subcommittee name, they can come to the meeting and bring it up again.
Yeah, I just want to stay in line with the rest of the committee work that the city's doing, and the names and
the county
and the county and the settlement agreement and all that. Yeah, I don't want to go backwards.
Okay, well, it sounds like,
Thank you.
does that sound good to everybody? Anybody have a dissenting view? Okay, sounds good. Thanks, everybody, for the conversation. And back to the agenda, which I have to bring up on another screen.
You turn on your mic a second.
Wait a second.
I guess that's it.
Which is not coming up for me. Oh, here we are. I'm sorry. Okay, conversation. Did you want to introduce this, Amy? Did you want to introduce this part, Amy? Oh, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
I can't get my screen to flip pages back and forth without distorting the screen setup.
Yeah, so the next part is to talk about the conversations.
Setting the stage for conversation.
Okay, basically, the reason we all gathered here tonight, and we've been doing the last month or so, is I have it on my heart to really want to get down to maybe figuring out how to develop a good and better relationship with the police overall as a larger group, to where they feel respectful and we feel respected. And it's around building trust. And so I wanted to continue having conversations about what would trust look like if it was kind of in its best model. I'm not going to say perfect, I'll say best. It's with you. So that was what I wanted to continue tonight's conversation on, was that discussion, is how to build better relationships with our PPB, because those are the folks that other people seem to have a lot of fear against and apprehension, and some won't even call if they need them. So we have to kind of try to figure out how best to make the bridge and having better relationships. And that's what my thought was around these events. And so I'm going to open it up for thoughts, conversations around what do people think on how to build a better relationship.
And I think people can just jump in, and if it starts to get crazy, we'll call on people.
Good questions.
Can I throw out a conversation starting question? Chase, I don't want to put you on the spot. You can decline if you'd like. I think one of the conversations we've had, and maybe you all had this last time because I wasn't able to be here, about what, we've fixed it so that we can break into small groups. Our hope being that we would attract enough people that we could break into smaller groups. We've thought that being, publicly, the public nature of the Zoom meetings might constrict some of the ability of police officers to feel comfortable, just coming in, talking about getting to know you, talking about building those kind of bridges with each other. So I've been kind of wondering what you think about that. What do you think, how great an interest do you think there might be in the Bureau, and how do you think this kind of approach would work with folks?
I think right now, at least, one of the challenges that we have is that everyone is incredibly busy. And so getting people to have the time to come and spend, an hour and a half here is a challenge right now with our staffing. And so I think that'll be a hurdle a little bit. And I think there is a little bit of a challenge in part of me, and I don't know, it's maybe a little bit of a chicken and an egg thing where there has to be trust to get full openness. But maybe, you have to be a little open to build some trust. And so, I definitely don't claim to know like how you get there. I think I agree that this is a start. And I know that it's primarily been Casey and I, and, we brought Officer Nell once, but that's a start. I think, the concern is always that there's, a recording and then something we say, gets somehow taken or chopped or taken out of context, and then, it comes back on us. And that's always a concern. Yeah, I just, as I was thinking, just when you brought this up, building trust of, a lot of things have been tried, right? Like there's a lot of like dinners, coffee with a cop, the no-hose dinners. I'm trying to think, the donuts thing we did. There's a lot of different things that have been tried, and not that those are not valuable. But I wonder too, one way I think that's helpful is, community academies. I know that with COVID, we're not doing that, but for the community to come see us and learn a little bit about what we do. Ride-alongs are great. You get to spend time with an officer if you're able to do that. Again, with COVID, those aren't really happening. But it's just a kind of a different take on things as far as like people coming into the police world a little bit, if they're comfortable with that and getting to know us in that realm, I think could be helpful. Yeah, I don't know if that was a helpful answer or not, but that's what I could think of.
It was to me. Thanks, Chase.
Chase, would more people come if the meetings weren't recorded? Because we can opt not to record them if that would help in making people feel comfortable about speaking openly.
I don't know. I don't know that that's something where it's like people won't come just because it's a recorded meeting. I don't know that it's that serious, obviously. And I understand the reason, it makes sense why it would be recorded. Other people that can't be here can be a part of it. And so I think there's certainly benefit there. I really think, at least currently, the biggest is going to be, being able to pull people away from what they're doing to be able to participate is one of the bigger challenges right now.
Barb had something. Go ahead.
So I guess what I'm thinking is that what you're saying, but not really saying, Chase, is that the police department is too busy to have community engagement. And that's what we're trying to build. I think your ideas are fabulous about Citizens Academy and the ride-alongs, because I want to do that, definitely. And I've talked to people who have. But yeah, there has to be a give and take. And I know you guys are shorthanded. So maybe you guys don't come to the meeting for the whole hour and a half. Might be some of a compromise. Or it used to be awesome when Chief Resch, before she was chief even, would come to the meetings.
Before the Zoom meetings.
But, one of the things I really, really think is that we should take care of this time when we can be on Zoom, because unless it's false, I'm really under the impression that when the cops do certain things, they have to wear their uniform, and their uniform includes a firearm. And there's people that are uncomfortable about that. But if we do it by Zoom, there's really no, that's not an issue. So yeah, those are my probably three main points for right now. And I think your answer was really, really good and really realistic. And thank you for your candor.
Yeah, and I don't want to imply that we're too busy for all community engagement. Certainly, we're still doing a lot of community engagement as we can. It's just that, it's harder. Usually, we were able to adjust our shift and do things like that to be able to come in and then still work a full shift in the precinct, and things like that are a lot harder to do right now because we have to have minimum staffing on the street to respond to 911 calls.
Yeah.
Certainly, community engagement's happening, and we're that's still a focus. My job, that's one of my biggest focuses, is really trying to get out there and in the community, despite all the staffing. Certainly, Lieutenant Hetman's been, that's his focus as well. It's just one of the hurdles. I'm not saying that's the only reason.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to add to our situational dilemma? of how do we go about building trust with people who are physically unavailable?
Hey, Amy, can I just recap a little bit so that for the folks who were here last month, it might trigger some, trigger's not a good word. They might recall some of the information.
Please.
So the conversations that we started with last month were, how do you build trust and what does trust look like to you? And folks said stuff like accountability, be accountable for actions, mutual understanding of each other, respect others' opinions, build trust daily by our interactions. We want to truly help people. Another person said consistency. A recommendation of acknowledgement was another comment. Someone said one-on-one interactions. Individual trust and organic change in the individual. And then trust will lead to a collective trust. A few folks talked about being vulnerable, opening up to hearing what others had to say and listen, humbleness. Yeah, those are just some of the notes that I took.
Thank you. You are
Yolanda.
awesome. Thank you for doing that. Yeah, it's hard for me to concentrate on the computer and take notes. I just,
Bob has his hand up.
yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, Chase mentioned the call. The ones I went to went extremely well. They were cordial and people felt very comfortable with it. I thought it was a big success. So perhaps we could look forward to summer or fall, getting back into that Coffee with Cops program.
I just want to, acknowledge what Bob said, and then also, so I'm working at my, regular job, and we're still doing like programming with students, and we're delivering food to their doorsteps, and we're delivering supplies if we're doing an event and they need to bead or something like that. And so I feel like we could still do Coffee with a Cop. I think the difference is now that we're in the pandemic and the numbers are basically, there'd have to be like a sign up. And so what I'm trying to say is I think we can still do some of the things that were done, but at a smaller scale. So I just don't want things to be like,
Meetings on Zoom and get a good turnout that way. We can have a lot of people present. And then when we're able to, switch to the in-person ones.
And I'm happy to put out an invite and kind of seek people out to try to get, as many people here as we can. If you, keep me in the loop on that kind of stuff. Obviously there'd be other channels, but I'm happy to like personally go, try to recruit people to come attend.
Chase and Barb, I see you. I just want to throw in, that's one of the reasons we're glad we can.
Examiner and those kinds of like neighborhoody types of newspapers.
I get one, Southeast Uplift.
That would be a good place to probably both maybe write it.
And DOJ have been pretty salutary about the general efforts. I think for PCCEP and the area to focus on is the established community engagement plan that you all had input on last year. The Bureau adopted. It's been around for you should improve on one of those areas, maybe change one of the areas, or discard one of the areas because it's no longer relevant. I think that's a nice source if you're concerned about community engagement. Now, alternatively, the Behavioral Health Unit Advisory Committee has their own community engagement plan that I think this committee looked at maybe August of last year. I remember reporting about that. And, I think they're doing great. I would, my preference, at least the vision or the outcome, the vision of the settlement agreement would be that PCCEP would be focused on the community engaged policing part that's in your name. And the vehicle for doing that would be in part that community engagement plan, which is a living, breathing document. You could assess the city's progress on that. You could reevaluate some of the goals. You could do a lot with that within that existing framework. Now, I don't want to cabin you into just, that. If you have new brilliant ideas, I think you should come forward with them. I've always thought that one area that had a lot of potential value is when you have people with different challenges in the community who pre-report to the police that, hey, my son has schizophrenia, sometimes it's untreated. Like, I want you to, be careful when you come to this address. I forget what that's called, but there's like a pre-registering. And I know that comes with a host of, concerns, but I think it's a valuable tool that when the police go to someone's house, they might know that the person at the other side of the door, has a behavioral health condition that may or may not be untreated, but it just helps them calibrate the tools they use. And by tools, I mean their voice, their communication command, and control stuff. So, I don't want to, you guys are free to consider your own ideas, but I think the vision really was that PCCEP would help bring that community engagement plan to life and keep continually reviewing and improving it.
Rochelle's asking a question in the chat.
Let me.
Chase, were you going to say something else?
No, I was just going to say, I think what Jared's referring to is called the Additional Needs Registry. I was trying to find the link here, if I'm not mistaken. That was it.
Thank you. While you're looking for that, Rochelle in the chat has said the community continually asks for transparency. They need that for trust. So a question, why isn't the BHUAC open to the public?
Is that question to me or to Chase?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think for anyone who feels they haven't
From my understanding.
My answer was going to be, I do not know. So I think it's to you.
Well, my understanding was that once I did a lot of investigating into who was on it, what they were doing and everything, I concluded that it's a clinical model of client discussions where the clinicians who work on the teams get together and they discuss treatment plans, treatment goals, and things of that nature, which is sensitive information that the public really should not be involved in. But there is talk of another behavioral health advisory committee maybe forming that could include the public. So I'm totally okay with what I learned about the BHUAC discuss private client interactions. So it's better that it's not open to the public. But like I said, the other one could be.
I
So
just want to add a little bit to that. You know, the Behavioral Health Unit Advisory Committee has considered it now since I've been working on the case. 3 different times they put it to a vote of their members, and their membership doesn't has been to continue keeping the meetings public. The Department of Justice is not required them to be open, but we understand the community's concern, and the judge has had the same concern. I do know that the Behavioral Health Unit Advisory Committee is considering opening one or 2, or having some ad hoc meetings open to the public. That's a discussion that's ongoing. I don't know where they've come down on that. But it's, if you want to get into the reasoning behind why they voted against it, Amy has hit on some of the points. There's sensitive information. There's people on the committee from all different types of stakeholders. Public Defender is represented, Central City Concern, Disability Rights Oregon, Oregon Health Authority, and some of those members I think feel more able to speak freely when it's a private meeting. That's been the understanding in the past. The committee has also reasoned that they will meet with individuals individually and discuss the business of the Behavioral Health Unit Advisory Committee. So I know the chair, Janie Gullickson, has been open to one-on-one meetings, and that has been, I guess, sort of a
Barb had something to say too. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I was gonna say, this is so weird. What I was gonna say is that there are members of that group, Janie in particular, Janie Gullickson, with both lived experience, and she is the executive director of, let me try to do this, the Mental Health and Addictions Association
They changed their
of
acronym.
Oregon. It's an Oregon, I don't know. Anyway, it's a so it's basically HIPAA. If it's open to the public, then there's a whole bunch of things that can't be discussed because that would fall under a HIPAA violation. And you don't want to get the HIPAA police out after you.
They're worse than the DOJ.
Yes.
I hope you're laughing, Jared. So Rochelle shared in the chat, as long as there's no transparency, there's no trust. This includes PPA, not open to the community on that, and has no control over the PPA is a separate organization that they're not the boss of, much I'm sure to their regret sometimes. So I'm wondering if there is conversation, if there are alternatives that would meet the interests of folks around the transparency, like if there were regularly published notes that did not refer to individuals, but that actually reflected the conversations that were had. Are there ways other than totally opening those meetings? Because this is the power of the PCCEP, is you can make recommendations. So if there is, if there's something that can happen, it might happen more quickly if the PCCEP weighs in. And that is one of your superpowers, is that you can make recommendations to the mayor and to the police chief. And I don't know, Rochelle, whether you feel like that would be, I'm wondering what you feel would be, given that it couldn't be just wide open, since that's not an option at this moment, what are there other things that could happen that would make you feel more comfortable with the situation? And anyone can answer that. Okay, well, Rochelle might end up typing something to us.
Judith, I'd like to ask Bob a question about Bybee Lakes because I'm very curious. Are there any like police interactions? Do they have to come out to Bybee Lakes, or what's your support with the police in that organization? What does that look like?
Well, there are dozens of members of the police force that have taken the online training program so they can refer people to Bybee Lakes.
Oh, wow.
Of particular importance is the service coordination team has referred several people to it. And it's worked out very well for them. They're really committed to the program. A lot of them are working in the warehouses near Bybee Lakes. We have a contract with warehouses for $18 an hour. They're working hard. They're starting to feel good about themselves. So our relationship with the police has been terrific. They have not actually had to physically come out to Bybee Lakes for anything so far, but they do refer people there. I'm going to be doing a presentation the day after tomorrow at a meeting for the behavioral health unit and the service coordination team of the police. And I'm going to be presenting my experiences in the program that I participated in Philadelphia. So I will be getting to talk to them some more about it, but they've been very cooperative and very interested in our program.
That is awesome. Thank you. Because maybe we can unify ideas and forces, because Bybee Lakes is a dream we all waited for and none of us were really sure if it was going to happen. And the fact that it happened is spectacular. And so I think it's really important to spread around some of those interactions that really work between the police referring and clients getting in and stuff like that. So maybe that's another angle we can work on as looking at things from a, a little higher perspective of how much things are happening for the good during this time period. Because I always like to hear about that too.
I also participated in a tour for District Attorney Mike Schmidt and one of his, and they were really blown away by the place as well. And they've taken an interest in actually having an opportunity to keep people with mental health and addictions out of the criminal justice system and have them seek rehabilitative efforts. They were very impressed with the program as well. So there are a lot of people that have taken an important interest in what we're doing at Bybee Lakes.
Wow, just out of curiosity, have you hired peer support specialists?
Yeah, I don't have much to do with the hiring, but I know that they do have some working out there. Yes.
Okay,
So
wonderful.
many of them are working out there as well. Well, they're all working. Age 13, spectacular. They have, this is their, I think, 11th or 12th facility, and they have a really strong data system that tracks everybody. And their rate of success as people staying in stable housing for a year or more has been 80% for women, 75% for men.
Wow, that's huge.
And their database is just very strong. They track everybody. Every admission is trauma informed. They're studied in detail. They, a lot of the people have post-traumatic stress disorder. And to be able to go into group therapy and hear other people's stories and present their own
sounds really exciting for our community. And it's good to know that you guys have a good relationship. So I know there's certain areas, you know, that the police are working in that I consider like new and innovative. And those would be interesting to hear about as well, Chase. So like if there's new programs that you guys got going on that's working well, I would like to hear about them. You know, I'd like to learn about all the different things that pertain to the community that, you know, hurts so much with the mental illness. And a lot of my people have really negative interactions that I'm trying to figure out how maybe to soften up, you know. And so, because I hear a lot of stories of broken ribs and black eyes and beatings, and I'm not quite sure how to interpret all that. So it's something on my mind to have more conversations around as well. So I don't know. I'm thinking now maybe we ought to have a town hall with a group of officers as a panel, and then we come up with some really interesting questions that we could just ask a panel of individuals that would have the questions ahead of time. Then there'd be no surprises. So we can always look at something like that as well. Yolanda, did you have anything more you want to bring into this thought process?
Yeah, me and Jared were messaging back and forth, and let's see. Sorry, I'm Jared, can you just say it out loud, because I'm trying to read all the different chats and it's confusing.
Yeah, no, I thought it might be worth exploring Rochelle's idea to get a little more input or hearing from the organization itself as to what their alternatives are. And so, you know, I thought that was an opportunity for this subcommittee to have some members of the BHUAC, you know, some of their organizational members, maybe not Lieutenant Hetman, but some of the organizational members to come and engage with Dr. Silver and maybe some other people of the Mental Health Association to understand what perhaps some alternatives are. Because I know they're interested in exploring that. And, you know, I think there's interest on both sides. And that's, you know, I think a role this subcommittee could take on is sort of building that bridge. And I do think that's sort of the vision for what this committee and PCCEP can do.
Yeah, Jared, you're absolutely right. And I do remember we had one meeting where Janie was here and some other folks from the BHUAC, and they were explaining their program and their process. But maybe we should just have them back again since others weren't here to hear it. And we'll just do an invite around that subject matter. I like the idea because it's always changing and we can find out what their ideas are for future. I know Cindy works for Cascadia. I'm starting to meet some of the clinicians that actually work for the organization I work for that I didn't even next month, that we can send out the invites early. Are there any particular individuals on that advisory committee that the group in this room would like to have present?
Jamie always.
Well, I think you might want to work with Dr. Silver to see, you know, on her side first, what might work for their organization. And you know, I don't want to, you know, I'm trying to mediate here and just provide some suggestions. But, you know, I think just picking an April date and then filling in slots, you know, maybe that won't work for the Mental Health Alliance. I don't know. I don't want to speak for any. I'm speaking for too many people now. I'm just trying to throw out some ideas.
No, you're good, Jared. I got you. I'm good. I'm hearing your suggestions. I'm just looking to see what would make things feel better to the community as a whole, fulfill our part obligation under the settlement agreement, and help us all move forward together. That's, you know, and have a better relationship with all of our operational organizations. There's hundreds of them in Portland, and we've only spoken with a few.
You know, Amy, if I might. About the issue of policing and folks who have behavioral / mental / substance health issues. Are there, because I think it's great for the police to come and talk about what they do. We have people come here and we have people come who are concerned about policing. And I just didn't know if there are things that some of you all wish people would understand better or know better about the experience that you all have had with policing. Okay, that didn't ring any bells. That's fine. So Amy, it's almost 10 to 8, so we have 10 minutes left. Do y'all want to just talk about inviting folks from the unit to the next meeting? Is that where we are?
Judith,
Yes.
that's fine, but I was trying to say something.
I'm
but-
sorry. Go right ahead.
Okay.
So to your question about interactions between the police and the community, and I mean the community that they're arresting more than the community that they're protecting. Basically, there's and I want to try to make my story really short, but basically it took me a while to figure out what it was I saw. And somebody I knew well had just gotten into a fight and the police were there. And one was watching him and 2 were talking to the suspect. And Joe emptied his pockets and put everything on the cooler, which basically says, I know I'm going to jail. I believe he wasn't wearing shoes, just maybe socks. He's capable of running like hell because I've watched him chase down people that have taken like people's purses and stuff. So basically after emptying his pockets, the next thing he did is he walked toward the parking strip. And the cop said, you know, Mr. So-and-so, don't go anywhere. Well, he wasn't planning to. He sat down in the parking strip. Now, I didn't really realize this at the time, but later thinking about it, he was probably meditating and trying to just keep himself calm. And he may have even had his eyes closed. So there was a huddle between the 3 cops when the other 2 came over. And of course they were going to arrest him, right? So what happened was all 3 of them approached Joe, one on each side to do the scoopy under the arm thing. And I guess it's one to catch his head, but I'm not 100% sure. There's usually another one in front. And so that happened, just like that. And he resisted. He completely tightened up. I watched, I added to the chorus of, of relax and don't resist and all that other stuff. One of the things I learned, I heard him ask what the charges were, and the cop told him what the charges were while there was yelling from the other cops and whatever else was around. So he didn't hear it. Handcuffed and his face down sideways on the sidewalk. Now, processing that and coming to realize that was PTSD. Joe's a veteran, and there's, been other things in his life, but just being a veteran should say, and that he was overseas, should say enough. I'm not saying he's a good guy. Some situations, and that would, to me, having the suspect already on the ground and, and he's emptied his pockets and he already had a chance to run. I mean, it just, sometimes things escalate the situation, I guess. And like I said, it took me a while to process it. And all of a sudden I realized exactly what was going on. Supervisor trying to decide if it was a takedown because he was already on the ground, but they had taken his head and forced it down. So that was just kind of funny to me that, they spent that amount of time trying to decide what it really was. So
one story for the books. You don't want to witness a takedown that's too traumatic. It's hard to come back from. Anyways.
Thanks for sharing that, Barb. So Amy, how would you like to, what would you like to say about next steps and closing us up for the night?
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming and sharing. This is a very important topic for me and everyone else, I'm sure, is like, we want to continue to build these wonderful relationships and have conversations that are safe and accommodating to everyone who might think differently from everyone else. So, Yolanda, you have final thoughts? I see a hand. Yes, I can see that hand. Visual. Go ahead.
I was just agreeing with what you said. I did want to, I think that reaching out to the BHUAC is great, but if the timing doesn't work well for them, I do like your idea of having a police panel. And Chase offered to recruit folks. So I think that can be a second option, because I think having two options going forward is probably better than one.
Yes. Yes. I know everybody's schedule is labored. We're all laboring in love around COVID, and everybody's on Zoommobile, right? We're all busy. So yeah, we'll get the invites out early, see who's available and who's not, and then work on potentially having that panel, because then we could target our questions to be respectful and responsible, and we don't have to worry about them being worried about the questions. We'll have them in advance kind of thing. And maybe the the community can help us figure out what questions to ask. So on that note, it's 5 to 8. Are there any final thoughts from anyone? Thank you all so much for sharing. It really, I'm excited to go visit Bybee Lakes. I really am. This sounds like a wonderful opportunity. So, any thoughts from anyone else? If not,
Thank you, everyone. Be well, be
I'm going to
safe.
close the evening out and say thank you all and be safe and come back next month.
Thank you, everyone.